Now, South Korea leads the world when it comes to broadband when we talk about the fastest speeds and highest penetration. And even when our national broadband network is built at 100 megabits per second, we will still be behind the South Koreans, which are enjoying gigabyte speeds. For more, Lisa Creffield travelled to South Korea as a guest of Cisco.
Here in Incheon, South Korea, they're building an entire intelligent and sustainable new city. It will be one of the world's first cities where all information systems are linked through a multi-billion-dollar network built by Cisco. With the world's top 20 cities using 75% of the world's energy, a key aim is to make this city as green and efficient as possible.
The top 20 cities are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we have to start looking at the greenfield cities to not start in that way. And we have to focus on what we call the brownfield cities, how to attack this issue. And we have to attack that with that whole vision of that everything can be connected and that we can look at it as a new industry and that the agenda is sustainability, economically, environmental and socially.
This is billed as the apartment of the future. Everything in it is connected and smart. It measures exactly how much power is used each day and even recommends ways to reduce it. There's also a telepresence suite, so you don't even have to commute to the office for meetings.
I think that we're just seeing the early phases of it, really, in terms of the integration of technology, especially into the lifestyle of the citizen. And so when we think about how they're connected to services through the government, for example, out of their home, or making that more convenient for them in terms of that interaction and experience is really important.
Here at Songdo International School, children undergo what's described as Classroom 2.0. Video and telepresence will form a key part of their learning. Their locations will even be tracked throughout the campus as part of the school's security policy.
Korea is the second connected country in the world. If you look at their education system, it's all around technology as an enabler. But then Korea, President Lee Myung-bak, has made green his prime objective. And then the city, Incheon, having started 10 years ago, at designing a city with a waste management city system underground, he has that leadership, that vision. And so teaming up with a visionary leader will accelerate the showcase of a smart, connected community.
500 million more people will be urbanised over the next 5 years. It means 100 more million-plus population cities by 2025. But smart connected cities are expected to generate additional revenues of $15 billion, hundreds of thousands of jobs, and boost energy efficiency by 30%. Over a 20-year period, they'll add an extra 9.5% to GDP.
This vision of the cities of the future is also coming to Australia. The national broadband network will enable new and existing cities to become both smarter and more sustainable. Lisa Creffield, Business Channel, South Korea.
For more details on the Smart City project, Lisa spoke to Cisco's Chief Globalisation Officer, Wim Elfrink.
So Lisa, there is a plan in Incheon to build a smart connected community. So what they need is a technology provider who can work with them on generation of new services, and that's a thought leader. That's the first role we play. And then secondly, they want to bring the industry together between developers, technology partners, public-private partnerships. And then last but not least, of course, also very important, they need equipment. And they need software, they need new business models. And so we really try to have that comprehensive role of being a thought leader, helping to bring partners together, and in the end, deploy networks and make quality of citizens a better experience.
How will this compare to other smart cities you've been involved with?
So what we have seen so far, that we expect a lot here out of Songdo. Why? Because first, it's a Korean initiative. And so it's a political agenda to make Korea a smart, green country. Next to that, Mayor Eng, he had this dream for the last 10 years. And so a lot of energy has already been put in the total concept, and also the industrial side. And that we have a park here in the middle of the city, and we have bike lanes, and we have a whole waste management system. And so there is very, I would say, forward-looking type of thinking. We're jumping on that wagon, And I think we can accelerate together. So I would definitely rate it in the top 3 of what I've seen around the world.
So what specifically will your network here mean for Incheon?
Yeah, so what it will mean here specifically is services. Access to services. Access to services. So if I would be a citizen here in Songdo, I will have what we call TP screen. I can connect to the school. And now with the swine flu, if I would want to talk to a doctor, I don't have to go to a hospital. I just click and I speak to a knowledgeable guy in the hospital. He can take my blood pressure, he can make a diagnosis online, and only when he really physically has to see me, I would go there. Another example would be energy management. I have total visibility of energy management in my house, in my school, in my business. And so I think the biggest experience will be for citizens that it's real. They can use it in a very, I would say, elegant and simple way.
What are you seeing with technology use in emerging economies generally?
Okay, so that's from a globalization point of view. We try to build a company for speed, scale, and replicability. And so we look at that sustainable new business models. So what we see in this side of the world, in Asia Pacific in general, due to the mass growth of population, adaptation of cell phone telephony. We talk about 10 million new subscribers every month in India. How do you scale for that? If you think about adaptation of urbanization, specifically here in Korea, 100 new cities will be built in China. We will be close to that. But then also, over the next decade, 3 billion people will get connected to the internet. And so we will get what we call the mobilization of the mobile internet. What could that mean for education? A complete different way how you can do off-classroom training. What will that mean for healthcare? And so we see a lot of, I would say, verticals be transformational due to connectivity and an out-of-the-box type of thinking.
Lisa then asked Professor Euro Binek about what surprised him the most about these new technologies.
Wow, there are so many. Yeah, it's incredible. The one that I think is more profound is the fact that you can somehow create a digital copy of the real world. So we do communication, we work with IT, we write documents, we use normal tools, but behind that we are creating somehow, we're leaving behind the trace, which is somehow a copy, a digital copy of the real world. Now if you take that idea to the extreme, and that will be the case by, because of the development of sensor networks and so on, you can even think of a copy of the real world, which is in real time. Now that gives an unprecedented capability of understanding what we do, how we do it and so on, so the human behavior, but also to anticipate it and then of course act on the reality and so on. So that's a bit theoretical, but in practice is one of the biggest things that have changed through internet, through digital technologies.
Do you think technology will solve our environmental problems?
I'm not sure if it has the power, it has the potential. And this is one of the potentials we have to try. There are so many things that we have to try, and technology is one of those. You can see it in many ways. In mobility is the simplest one, but the second one, I think, which is essential, is the ability to understand where we use energy, how we use it, and also the alternatives we have, and actually put those alternatives to use. Now, that capability depends a lot on our ability of connecting things and having information in real time around that one. Now, whether we are going to use it in the proper way or not, it depends to us, but the potential is really there.
What technologies are emerging that aren't quite making headlines yet, at least in a consumer sense?
I think the most profound ones is what you find behind the name Internet of Things. So internet is common, everybody uses it and so on. But there's the internet of people, the internet of communication. There's another internet behind which is emerging, which is important now, but is going to be extremely more important, is when objects connect to the internet, when houses connect, when roads connect, vehicles connect and so on. And those are the things that we don't see now, but when all these things are connected, of course you have a total different view of the world. And then we can't be used to that because it's not common, but we'll have to find a way to get used to that because it is part of the development. It's a natural thing. It's like a gravitational development. It will happen.
So what's going to be the biggest game-changing technology in the next decade?
I think sensor technologies. Sensor technology. So the smallest, small bits of technology which will dot our houses, our clothes, our trams, our communication networks, and they will be everywhere. So they will be, and many services will rely on the fact that they are there. So there will be a no return, because essential services like healthcare, like ability to enter a building and so on, will depend on the fact that all these buildings are intelligent, so they know who you are, you understand the fact that you can be in or not, and without that, you won't be able basically to use essential things, and that is a huge impact.
Well, the national broadband network will really change the way businesses operate in the future and will also give consumers more power. So to find out more, I spoke with Jim McCurley from Bullseye, who wrote one of the first reports into what business will be like at 100 megabits per second.
Well, I think there's going to be democratisation of the way people do business. I mean, one of the things about making information available and more readily available to a whole range of sources is of course, you get the interaction, you get the contribution to the creation of knowledge, you get the sharing of know-how. It's a completely different environment. I mean, traditionally we've had labour and capital as being the source of economic power, and that's moving to knowledge, and knowledge can move around in nanoseconds, and anybody can have knowledge. So the underlying fundamental rules of business are going to change, and that's what's going to tumble through. It's going to change everything about how we operate.
Can we talk about some of those major changes? The first one, supply chains. How will that be different?
Yeah, well, if you think about it, the supply chain's typically been dominated by the people who make the stuff. They make the goods, they do a bit of market research and hope that they can sell it. They push it out there, they get a big marketing campaign and they push the brand out to the consumer, and if the product works, the consumer buys it. What's going to happen now is the consumer's going to be far more selective and have far greater input into what products are being developed for them. So rather than choose any old car as long as it's black, they will have an input to not only the colour of the car but a whole range of assets and features and functionality, and the producer will be able to react much quicker to what the consumer's saying. So big changes in that sort of aspect.
So in other words, you're saying there'll be a lot more customisation, and obviously that will give consumers a lot more power. Just how much more power?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, Adam Smith, one of the fathers of economics, talked about the invisible hand, which was, his theory was that at the end of the day, when demand met supply, that the good of the country was looked after and the good of the consumers were looked after. And we lost that a little bit with mass advertising, where brands were built and people weren't given as much selection. You're going to see it a lot more. People will react, suppliers will react and be a lot more responsive to consumer power. How far it will go, it will vary according to the product. The service industries will be very responsive because they will be getting feedback, and if it's not happening, they're going to lose the sale. So it will change dramatically and to various extents across different types of businesses.
Infrastructure will obviously change quite dramatically, but won't hardware or appliances have to change as well?
The current technology futurists are talking about having a fat pipe, very, very fast internet into the cloud, as they call it, fat pipe to the cloud. You know what that means, but it means we're going into a really, really big central computer and you just send a signal, does all the processing and sends the results back. I suspect we're actually not going to see that as much as having intelligence in consumer devices like fridges that scan what's in the fridge to tell you what you need to order and send an order off, energy metering at your home, a VCR or a digital device that knows your preferences and scans all of the channels out there and records what you want to record. A little bit of intelligence in the terminal is going to save a lot of traffic on the pipe. And one of the things we think, 100 megabits, wow, that's a huge amount of broadband speed, but you start sending video up and down, that will use up all that capacity very quickly. So we're going to want to process some stuff at the terminal. That just makes enormous sense to do that. I mean, one of the things I often talk about, you take a washing machine and you have a little device that calculates how many tumbles that machine has, and it knows after 10,000 tumbles or some number that it's going to need to be repaired or replaced. Ping, little signal goes out over the wireless to the manufacturer. The salesperson makes one and only one call to the owner to say, your washing machine's due for replacement, can we come and do it? That's the advantage of having a little bit of intelligence in the terminal, and I think that's where we'll end up for sure.
Is there anything businesses can start to do now to prepare themselves for this change? Because isn't it going to be quite expensive to implement all these changes?
I don't know that it necessarily will be, because the way that business will go about it, instead of buying hardware and applications, they'll move into what is known in the industry as software as a service model, so that they will just rent what they need. They will just pay a monthly fee for the service. And if you think everyone knows what Word is, instead of owning an application called Word, you just log in and you use a Word application that's at the end of the fat pipe working out of the cloud. So I think the upfront costs for business could be a lot lower than people are expecting. The unknown, of course, is what is it going to cost to send information down the fat pipe. And the NBN project is meant to provide a wholesale solution for retail service providers to provide a variety of services at different prices and different levels of service. But the whole thing isn't going to work unless it's priced at a rate that business can use. That's the bottom line.
The National Broadband Network will also have huge implications for the media and broadcasting industry, creating new opportunities and options for content distribution and delivery. For more, Lisa Creffield spoke with the Alcatel Jeff Hayden.
To begin with, just using more and more, being online all the time, and using more things with more pressure on more bandwidth and larger file sizes, that's kind of just the starting point. But that's really only the beginning. You know, there's so much more to happen. We've got a long way to go before business truly connects to consumers in a more interactive way and in a more complete way. There's a long way to go with things like government services, education services and health services, which are all critical areas, and all of them will leverage the internet more, but perhaps more importantly for the NBN, they're all going to leverage more detailed network connectivity that is not just about the internet. They'll have their own networks that run on the NBN.
Is consumer behaviour in Australia different because of the fairly restricted download quotas that people here face when using the internet?
That is having an effect, but the basic user behaviours are tailored by their value propositions, and in some markets where there haven't been any download limits, people have got very comfortable downloading almost any file size and just taking as long as it takes. But there's definitely a bias towards getting value. So if there's a limit, Australians tend to work to that limit rather than just free flowing of data. So we'll see that evolve.
So what are the NBN's main implications for content delivery? How is it going to shake up the media landscape?
Well, the NBN's far more than just the internet. The internet is only one thing that will run on the NBN, but we'll see a very wide range of other networks running on the NBN as well. So they're all leveraging the internet protocols and the technology that is the internet. But perhaps the real value is how all of these services, and I mean all, like broadcast services, print media services, with combinations of very cool devices and the network, we'll see broadcasting, we'll see all forms of print media, we'll see all number of interactive services, all manner of government services, all delivered on this network. And when I say that, I don't just mean over the internet. I mean on this network, on the NBN. Internet is only one of many services.
Can you just explain what exactly is the difference between the NBN and the internet?
Well, this connection, the fibre optic connection that's being connected to the homes in Australia through this program, really does enable us to deliver many different services over that fibre optic connection, all at the same time. And I know that many of the discussions are around how cool will it be when we've got 100 megabits of internet access, and indeed it will be. But I think it's far more interesting to explore what happens when that fibre can deliver all of our broadcast services, all of our interactive services, and the internet still stays the internet, but then perhaps we won't use it for all of the same video downloads that we do today, because we'll be able to use our broadcast services and our interactive services to do a lot of that sort of work for us.
Is the media industry ready for this? What should they be doing to take advantage of this new network?
Well, that's a pretty big question, because there's a lot of different components here. There's regulation, and we've got media regulation, which really governs the broadcasting. You know, there's a Broadcasting Act which controls how broadcasters broadcast, and the starting point for that is in fact owning spectrum. Well, all of that broadcast material can be delivered on the optical fibre without the need for spectrum. So there's a need to evolve the legislation to handle this new kind of delivery mechanism. And I think that it's going to take a couple of years to get all of that regulation change in place and functioning and have everybody comfortable with it. But in the meantime, there is so much content, so many choices, so much availability of choice, that I think that there's a pent-up demand for what this will bring.